Class 9 English Supplementary Reader, Chapter 1, The Lost Child. Good morning, children. Let's continue with the lesson, The Lost Child. Now, yesterday, what happened? We saw the child coming towards the fair, and the child saw so many things on the way. Now, they took the road through the path through the field, and they came towards the village. Now let's continue. A sweetmeat seller hawked gulab jamun, rasgulla, barfi, jalebi at the corner of the entrance, and a crowd pressed round his counter at the foot of an architecture of many-colored sweets. Architecture of many-colored sweets. What is it? Decorated with leaves of silver and gold. So the sweet seller is making designs with his sweets. The way he piles and the shape of the sweets, that is, he is an architect of one kind. So he was calling out, gulab jamun, rasgulla, barfi, jalebi. The child stared open-eyed, and his mouth watered for the barfi that was his favorite sweet. I want that barfi, he slowly murmured, but he half knew as he begged that his plea would not be heeded because his parents would say he was greedy. So without waiting for an answer, he moved on. Now, it's so sweet of the child. He could not say, I want that barfi, because he loved barfi. He said it because he liked it so much. It came out spontaneously. But he knew he would be denied that barfi, and so he did not wait. He knew the parents will not give the barfi, so he continued moving. They would call him greedy. A flower seller hawked, a garland of gulmohar, a garland of gulmohar. The child seemed irresistibly drawn. He went towards the basket where the flowers lay heaped and half murmured, I want that garland. But he well knew his parents would refuse to buy him those flowers because they would say that they were cheap. So, without waiting for an answer, he moved on. Now, what is the next thing he wants? He sees the flower seller hawking a garland of gulmohar. He wanted it. But he cannot express it so loudly because his parents will not buy it. So he only murmured, I want that garland. He murmured to himself. What would his parents say? His parents now will give some reason to stop from buying. What is the reason they would give? They would say that it was very cheap. A man stood holding a pole with yellow, red, green, and purple balloons flying from it. The child was simply carried away by the rainbow glory of their silken colors, and he was filled with an overwhelming desire to possess them all. But he knew his parents would never buy him the balloons because they would say he was too old to play with such toys. So he walked on farther. Now, he saw balloons of different kinds. And he wanted to buy it. But this time, did he say he wanted the balloons? He didn't. Because he knows that the parents will never buy him the balloons. On what pretext? On the pretext that he was too old to play with balloons. So he walked on farther. A snake charmer stood playing a flute to a snake which coiled itself in a basket, its head raised in a graceful bend like a snake of swan, while the music stole into its invisible ears like the gentle rippling of an invisible waterfall. The child went towards the snake charmer, but knowing his parents had forbidden him to hear such coarse music as a snake charmer played, he proceeded farther. So he wanted to see the movement of the snake to the tune played by the snake charmer. But he did not linger on because the parents would say that it is a very coarse kind of a music and it is not worth listening. Now, there was a roundabout in full swing. Men, women, and children, carried away in a whirling motion, shrieked and cried with dizzy laughter. The child watched them intently and then he made a bold request. I want to go to that roundabout. Please, father, mother. Now he is boldly saying, I want to go then and play in that roundabout. Please, he added. He pleaded, father, mother, both of them. There was no reply. That means it is a big no from their side, from the side of the parents. He turned to look at his parents. They were not there. Ahead of them, he turned to look on either side. They were not there. He looked behind. There was no sign of them. So, what happens? He did not hear any reply. He thought it was a no for no. The answer was no, but the parents were not there. He was left all by himself. A full, deep cry rose within his dry throat, and with a sudden jerk of his body, he ran from where he stood, crying in real fear. So he started crying because he was left all alone. Father could not be seen around, mother could not be seen around. So, in a frantic manner, he started crying. Mother, father, tears rolled down from his eyes, hot and fierce. His flushed face was convulsed with fear. Panic-stricken, he ran to one side first and then to the other, hither and thither, in all directions, knowing not where to go. Mother, father, he wailed. His yellow turban came untied and his clothes became muddy. So, in a frantic manner, he started running here and there, all right? And he was not taking care of his dress also. The parents were not around. Having run to and fro in a rage of running for a while, he stood defeated, his cries suppressed into sobs. At little distances on the green grass, he could see, through his filmy eyes, men and women talking. He tried to look intently among the patches of bright yellow clothes, but there was no sign of his father and mother among these people, who seemed to laugh and talk just for the sake of laughing and talking. So he sees through his eyes, filmy eyes, his eyes filled with tears. Many people were there, many men were there, many women were there, and they were talking, they were laughing. But his mother was not to be around, was not to be seen around. Father was not to be seen around. He ran quickly again, this time to a shrine to which people seemed to be crowding. So there was a shrine, a small temple where people were crowding, and he went to find his parents there. Every little inch of space here was congested with men, but he ran through people's leg, his little sob lingering, mother, father. So, because he was very small, he could run through the legs of the people, though it was very crowded, and he was going around looking for the parents. Near the entrance of the temple, however, the crowd became very thick. Men jostled each other, heavy men with flashing, murderous eyes and hefty shoulders. So these people were so very arrogant. They were pushing and pulling each other so that they could go near the deity. The poor child struggled to truss a way between their feet, but knocked to and fro by their brutal movements. Nobody took care of him. He was pushed this way and that way. He might have been trampled underfoot had he not shrieked at the highest pitch of his voice, Father, Mother. So he started shouting at the top of his voice. If he had not shouted, he might have been trampled. And there, in these shrines, near the shrines, many people die of trampling. A man in the surging crowd heard his cry, stood with great difficulty, lifted him up in his arms. Now, at least there was one man who took care of him. With great difficulty, he stooped, and lifted him up in his arms. And what happens next? Who is this man? Let's find out in our next class. So we'll wind up here today. And for homework, please write one question. Make a list of the things the child wanted to have in the fair. Make a list of the things the child wanted to have in the fair. Okay, please do the homework in your homework notebook neatly and submit. Thank you so much. Good day.